So I think we have to start today on page 6, synthesis of yogic methods. For those of us who have the hard copy, I think it's page 6 on that. So let us start. Anyone who feels ready, if you can just read it out aloud for all of us. This much maybe first and then more later.
Yeah, I'll read.
Yes, Ritu.
It is this view of yoga that can alone form the basis for a sound and a rational synthesis of yogic methods. For then, yoga ceases to appear something mystique and abnormal, which has no relation to the ordinary processes of the world energy or the purposes she keeps in view in her two great movements of subjective and objective self fulfillment. It reveals itself rather as an intense and exceptional use of powers that she has already manifested or is progressively organizing in her less exalted but more general operations.
Yeah, Ritu, maybe you can read this one also.
Yogic methods have something of the same relation to the customary psychological workings of man as has the scientific handling of the force of electricity or of steam to their normal operations in nature. And they too, like the operations of science, are formed upon a knowledge developed and confirmed by regular experiment, practical analysis, and constant result.
Thank you. So I think it's high time that more and more of us nowadays are realizing that yoga is not something mystical and only for few people, exceptional ones, or maybe who don't are worldly enough. And more of us, also through Sri Aurobindo's mother's words, are realizing, many other masters are realizing that it's this movement of lower to the higher, which all of us are engaged in, either knowingly, unknowingly, which is called yoga. And it's not only these uh, physical asanas or pranayama, that is yoga, or special development of some powers, which is only yoga. Because as Sri Aurobindo says, as mothers say, I think they say that knowingly or unknowingly, all the movement is yoga, unconsciously or consciously. So what we can do is that when we are aware of that, okay, this is what is happening, and we are convinced, at least we can begin to collaborate now and not resist the flow of yoga, because that makes the labor even more harder. Although it doesn't matter, nature is full of abundance and raw material, so it will just continue to go on and on and on, because that is what she's doing. uh, so here Sri Aurobindo here, that it reveals itself rather as an intense and exceptional use of powers that she has already manifested, or is progressively organizing in her less exalted but more general operations. So I think no matter how many windows we may have, we will still have a lot of ignorance, so as to in how many different ways this yoga is happening. So, but whatever little windows open to us that we become aware of, at least there we can uh, have this light of consciousness and collaborate in this process of yoga. So here, this view of yoga, I believe, is referring to integral yoga. And in, for example, in Life Divine, if you shortly glance upon a few words here and there in synthesis of yoga, you will see that Sri Aurobindo, as if is Like, it's beautiful to see that he's taking the richness out of each yogic method, and he's saying that, okay, this is what it offers, this is what it offers, and we can have a synthesis of all these methods so that we can move forward. So I think that's really very beautiful, because he is not degrading any particular method of yoga. He's just, as a fact, he is talking about its pros, cons, and how it has a limitation, how it has helped in the evolution, and how we can have this richness and move forward. So that's really very beautiful to see. So, integral view of yoga, and also the synthesis of yogic methods. In this view of yoga, that can alone form the basis for a sound and rational synthesis of yogic methods. So even rationality, as we say, or reason, that too at its maximum when we see Sri Aurobindo's words. Otherwise, reason also become biased. When we are using our reason is biased, by our opinions. But here it's like a very objective view that Sri Aurobindo presents, and it is only touching upon the tip of the iceberg here. And we can read more words by Mother Sri Aurobindo to go deep into it. So yeah, I'll invite reflections on. I think I just touched upon this much so far. So anyone?
The um, the final paragraph that we read, to me, compares the process of doing yoga to the forces of nature, like electricity and like steam, which can power an engine. And the difference to me, or the value of this comparison, is it's saying that yoga is, the process of yoga is not whimsical. It's not, oh, it sort of works. It's compared to a process of nature. And maybe the difference is, with electricity, we see an immediate reaction. With a steam engine, we see an immediate reaction. But with yoga, I'm going to say we don't always see an immediate reaction. We don't typically see an immediate reaction. And this is encouraging to tell us, keep going. It is a scientific way of achieving a change in consciousness, just as electricity and steam can be seen to be forces of nature. So too, this is tapping into a force of nature.
Yeah, absolutely. I think many of the yogic processes also talk about working with breath. So just like you were sharing, working with electricity, steam, handling, like mastering and controlling energies of nature. There also we see that breath has a lot of power of cutting through our old egoistic patterns of thoughts, this repetitive vicious loop of thinking. So just like how we can use the elements of nature and make, have some a little mastery over them, although still nature is the Lord. Uh, Yet we see that along with, just like in yogic processes, we see that we can have a certain level of mastery over breath. Many yogic people can hold their, even stop their heartbeats for a very long time, and then again come back to the body is not yet dead. So again, as you were sharing, that there is a lot of mastery possible if we begin to work with these powers. And breath also has been very very powerful tool, not only in, I think in Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhism also, there are ways of working with the breath and cutting through our thought patterns. So like, uh, if you see anger arising, if you see jealousy arising, So they have particular channels working left or right. And then if you work with the breath and not focus in the thoughts, then you can cut through that pattern which is overwhelming you. So that's really very powerful. I feel that how simple, usually we ignore the breath like anything, it's just like taken for granted. But the power within that, it's really amazing. And even in our day-to-day processes, I may not have much knowledge of breath work or how to use it, yet we see that if I really am now willing to cut through the patterns which are now, I feel that they are not benefiting me, they're harmful, but they do arise from time to time and become overwhelming. So when the pattern is arising, you just keep on breathing very consciously. You stay with the breath, stay with the breath, just like a rugby player would stay with the ball and reach the other goal. So one doesn't go into the thought and storyline or the overwhelming feeling. One stays with the breath, and in some time you cut through that pattern. You don't give it importance. So that's again like the powers within, which we usually don't realize that we can make use of them. Yeah, anyone, anything here? Okay. So shall we move ahead then after this? Okay. Anyone who feels ready? Maybe this much. Yeah, let's see how much. But maybe this much to begin with. Yeah.
I can go. Mhm. But as in physical knowledge, the multiplication of scientific processes has its disadvantages. And that tends, for instance, to develop a victorious artificiality which overwhelms our nature, human life, under a load of machinery, and to purchase certain forms of freedom and mastery at the price of an increased servitude. So the preoccupation with yogic processes under exceptional results may have its disadvantages and losses. The yogin tends to draw away from the common existence and lose his hold upon it. He tends to purchase wealth of spirit by an impoverishment of his human activities, the inner freedom by an outer death. If he gains God, he loses life. But if he turns his effort outward to conquer life, he is in danger of losing God.
So I think this is, I believe, that's it's very, very important. Again, as all the words by Sri Aurobindo, that many times we feel that when we withdraw within, and withdraw from the outer world, go within in the inner world, one may develop powers, one may gain realizations. But as soon as we come back into the so-called material world, we see that not much has changed. We may have certain realizations, but there I feel that no, I don't want to be here in this material world. This appears a little maybe ugly, not as beautiful as I have my inner world. So here I feel this is something which, again, with Mother Sri Aurobindo, it's so beautiful that that's the work. This bridging of the gulf is our work. So we can't just retreat into the inner world and have the beauty there and just let the world be the outer one. Let my interactions be as ugly as possible. Or maybe I see again there my limitations of my nature. I see that, oh my God, since childhood I have been like that, and somehow as soon as I come back to the nature, to interactions, worldly interactions, I see that I am again overwhelmed by those limitations. So here in the first one, for instance, to develop a victorious artificiality which overwhelms our natural human life under a load of machinery. So I may have gained power over, for example, water energy. So I have built dams. Now I can have electrical energy through this blocking of, whatever, collecting of water. But again, I am dependent on so many instruments now to have that electricity coming through water. So he says here that it overwhelms our natural human life, this victorious artificiality, under a load of machinery, and to purchase certain forms of freedom and mastery at the price of increased servitude. So if I want light in my house, earlier maybe I was living on natural light coming, when it's dark, then it's dark. Now I have the possibility of having lamp in my house. So it's like we say that it's like a step ahead, but then I am also at uh, I'm at the, what do you say, I'm not getting the word, servitude of these forces. If, for example, if the light is gone, if electricity is gone, then I have no way how to now have lead my normal life, which has become normal for me. So although it appears like mastery over elements, but again we see that we are becoming dependent more on these tools which we have created for ourselves, which may increase our efficiency in other way, but they're also making us dependent. So in same way, if I have these beauties, powers, realizations, again, the problem is that ego is so sticky that it can get stuck at this any level. So that can become sense of my identity, that I feel as if I'm lacking something when I leave that powerful word within, and then I come back and to the worldly interactions, to the world, to the workplace, and as if I don't want to be here. So he says that price of an increased servitude. So the preoccupation with yogic processes, too much dependency on these processes, powers, all these realizations, and their exceptional results may have its disadvantages and losses. The yogin tends to draw away from the common existence. Now, this is a very common phenomena which we see when we embark upon the spiritual path. Many a times we just like retreat, and we stop our, maybe it's a phase, passing phase, that we don't want to interact much. We find too much solace, within. And the moment we are out, we again see disharmony in relationships, disharmony at workplace, and we just don't want to be there. Somehow the inner world appears too peaceful for some time before we realize that that's my task. So the yogin tends to draw away from the common existence and lose his hold upon it. He tends to purchase wealth of spirit by an impoverishment of his human activities. So that's why we see that, as Mother says, power has gone into wrong hands, asuric hands. Money has gone into asuric hands. Why? Because people who tend to be more spiritual, they would say, what do I have to do with the money? You have the money, Baba, I am okay with the spirit. But Mother says that that has to change. That has to change. Money has to have now get back money and power to proper hands, people who are spiritual, so that we can make also better use of money. It doesn't have to always remain a dark power, money and power. So he tends to purchase wealth of spirit by an impoverishment of his human activities, the inner freedom by an outer death. If he gains God, he loses life. Or if he turns his efforts to outward to conquer life, he is in danger of losing God. So many a times we have seen again in our life that if we dwell too much in activities per se, in that phase where we are liking to dwell too much within, we feel that as if we are missing out on something. As if we are, maybe I should not lose that inner something that I have found before it becomes so stable and concrete that it can be forwarded out to the outer life. Yeah, anyone? Anything here?
I think a lot can be said on this. And but more importantly, just even the first part, like this question that is our life really becoming easier? Like how we have all these gadgets, all these things which are supposed to give us more time. But doesn't it feel that it's just taking more time, in the sense we seem to have less time? Like if I remember about my growing up, we used to sit together, right? Like as a family, and there were moments, like especially say if the electricity would go, you had no option. You would all sit, you would talk, maybe sing songs, you know, and that was beautiful. But here with all these backups and everything, those moments are no longer there. So just that how, just as I recognize the advantages, I must also recognize what it's taking from me, so that the next time I want to upgrade or buy something else that would save me time, I'm a bit more aware, right? Like just I know it doesn't come as a surprise that, oh, I didn't want that, right? But with heads, the tails always come. So one has to, I think, be more mindful of that. And I think the second part about, how you lose that balance, I think like Rumi says, right? Life is a balance between letting go and holding on. So I think first, I personally feel it's, you lose all balance to find a bigger balance, right? Because unless you lose it, you cannot, I shouldn't say cannot, but most likely it's not likely that you would be able to change direction. So, it's like first you need to just withdraw, and then when you are ready, okay, now I can again go back and do what they are saying. Because if you are always there as well as here, it feels you're on two boats, right? Going nowhere. So that withdrawal also, I feel, is part of the process. So losing the balance is part of the process of gaining a bigger balance, so that you can, I don't know, operate or be more present in both the areas. But I think without withdrawing in, which, here it's being called that that's a disadvantage. So there must be a way in which one doesn't need to do that. But it doesn't feel wrong. It's like, okay, you're just gaining more power to go back and fight or be more again. Yeah, thank you.
So here, does it mean that one is leaving the regular day-to-day things and then going to a retreat and then trying to find oneself? Because it says that the yogin tends to draw away from the common existence and lose his hold upon it. So isn't it like being in that yogi state in the regular day-to-day thing?
Yeah, actually, again, this is, I believe these are excerpts taken from here and there. I think that's the problem when we read Sri Aurobindo, because he's synthesizing, he's like giving us a very large picture. So
Yeah.
if we just look at one bit, we we can only get a little window.
Yeah.
So I think this is just a reference to that, the drawback of it, because he's also talking of advantage, and then he's also talking of the drawback, that the drawback is that I may get too consumed in the inward life, that then that was what was happening in the name of asceticism, that sadhu ban gaye, yogi ban gaye, then you go into forests, in your caves, and then you abandon the so called material life. You say that no, 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 this is dukkha, this is suffering, so I don't have anything to do with it. So this is a reference to this over affirmation of that withdrawing in the spirit at the stake of the material life, which has its own drawbacks. So just referring to that, ideally what you are saying, I think that's the evolution, that where we are heading, that being in this worldly life, how to make it life divine, that's the challenge.
Even that would be so nice, to be in this state where you do not like human activities.
Yeah, that's what I think Taru was sharing, that there is a phase when we need to withdraw. That's
Yeah.
why retreats are there, people do either a group retreat or they just do, alone by
Yeah.
themselves, because
It feels
uh,
something.
then then when you come back, you are a different, person maybe.
Yeah, like once I did this silence retreat wherein we had to be silent for a week. So initially it seemed very difficult not to communicate, not to speak, not even, we couldn't even match eyes with other people because that was also a way of communication. So the first day was difficult, but then gradually it started being enjoyable. And then after we came out of that retreat, talking became very difficult. So
Absolutely. And we see that whenever we do these retreats, it's like they have a very, if it's a good retreat, they have a very calming and transforming effect on the mind and, the whole being. But we will also see that the moment we get back to the so-called day-to-day life, slowly that effect fades away.
mm,
So if I have done a retreat like 5 years ago, I have no memory of what processes I did, and very hardly a bit here and there. It must have done its work, definitely, but the strong effect which is there when we just right now fresh out of retreat, that effect fades away. And it fades away because the walk is from darkness to light. The walk is from lower nature to higher nature. So when we go back to the material world, we see that the lower nature, my own emotions, how I react, my feelings, the way I think, that again comes back. It's like it's back again with its full power. And in fact, people may also comment on me that, oh, you just did a retreat and still you are behaving like that. People do comment. And one can also say that that's why I need retreat, because I behave like that again and again. So that's the power of our mechanical, mental and vital nature, that it's so strong that the power of that retreat fades away very soon, and we then crave to go back to that retreat for the magic it did.
even if it's not a retreat, it's a half an hour meditation. Same thing happens.
Yeah. But again, it can be very grounding, these experiences, when we see that, oh, I'm the same, nothing really changed much. I think these are very grounding experiences which can self motivate us that, yes, I would like to bring change, a stable change in my ways of thinking, by the ways I feel, and slowly turn everything to the divine. Because as long as we remain attached to people and situations, we are bound to have these lower movements. So that's why Mother says that the whole movement, union with the divine, is like you have to slowly turn all the thoughts, all the feelings, everything has to turn towards the divine. If you have to stick to the divine. Yeah, anything? Anyone? Anything more here? Yeah, anyone who feels ready? Let's finish this one.
Okay, I go. No synthesis of yoga can be satisfying which does not, in its aim, reunite God and nature in a liberated and perfected human life, or in its method not only permit but favor the harmony of our inner and outer activities and experiences in the divine consummation of both. For man is precisely that term and symbol of a higher existence descended into the material world, in which it is possible for the lower to transfigure itself and put on the nature of the higher, and the higher to reveal itself in the forms of the lower.
So again, as always, Mother Sri Aurobindo, they kind of put us back on the track through these words. That why are we here? What is happening? Why are we here at all? So this discontent that we feel, he says, no synthesis of yoga can be satisfying, which does not, in its aim, reunite God and nature. And that is why we feel so frustrated at times. When we see that when I'm meditating, oh wow, I feel so nice. But when I am interacting with especially some relationships in life at little soft spots in work spaces, I am again the same person. So that's why the frustration is there. And I think it's good that the frustration is there, not that good also, because no, not, it should not prolong that much, because it tells me that there is something higher possible. If thirst is there, it means water is there. So if frustration is there, definitely I can do better than what I am doing right now. So he says that any synthesis provided of yogic processes and methods, it cannot be satisfying if the aim, the crux is not the unification of the spirit and the movements of Prakriti, which is the ways of thinking, feeling, the way I act in the world, the way I have ideas in the mind. It has to blend. It has to become one. It cannot be that in my day-to-day life I am a very rigid person in my personality, and when I am meditating I am very peaceful. Very soon a discontent will come, very soon. So he says that this has to happen in a liberated, perfected human life. So this is what we are all moving forward to. When we talk about the life divine, when Mother talks about the new race, that's what we are aiming, this reunification of God and nature. Not only permit but favor the harmony of our inner and outer activities. So favoring, not only that okay, this is allowed, that okay, you can go ahead and engage in the worldly life, it's favoring that being in the worldly life. How can you be yogic? As Ritu was sharing earlier, is that possible? And Sri Aurobindo says yes, it is possible. It is not only possible, that's where we are moving towards, all of us, either consciously or subconsciously. So not only permit but favor the harmony of inner and outer activities and experiences in the divine consummation of both spirit and matter, God and nature. For man is precisely that term and symbol of a higher existence descended into the material world, in which it is possible for the lower to transfigure itself and put on the nature of the higher, and the higher to reveal itself in the forms of lower. So imagine a diamond has, come down to some kind of mud. No matter how much of mud is there, nothing is going to happen to the diamond. The light is preserved forever. Wash it and here it is, no matter how many ages it can be kept in the mud. So this Mother says, and Sri Aurobindo, that this divine, the psychic being in us, the immanent Godhead as they call it, this divine presence in us is kept safe. In Savitri there is also a line that this treasure within us is kept safe. So I may approach the treasure consciously after lifetimes, and yet it will have the same strength, same shine, the glory and the realization. And that's why it's never too late. Although Mother says that it's never too early also. Mother says it's always too late. It's like we're always running on towards, getting on this train which has already left. But Mother also says that it's never too late, but it's never too early. So wherever you are, if you're ready to begin, you just start. Not saying that, oh my God, now it's too late, I can't do it. We all can do it. So this human being, we consider ourselves so unworthy and like we are limited. Main to insaan hi hu. I am just like human only. We degrade this human being. We say, I am human. What did you expect out of me? That's what we say. But we don't realize that what we have to remember is we are divine. And when we see a friend in trouble, we have to make him realize, don't forget that you are divine. You have the power. You are not limited as you feel right now. So get in touch with that power within, which 24/7 is available to you, and you can go through this phase, whatever you are going through. So whenever we come across our own limitation or a friend's limitation, I think this remembrance, if it can be invoked, that we are all divine, we are not humans, we are divinely human, or humanly divine, but however way we can say, we cannot limit ourselves in the name of calling ourselves human. If we do that, we are just degrading ourselves. So man is precisely that term and symbol of a higher existence descended into material world. Just like, in Savitri we see that how it's shown that Savitri descends, takes a mortal birth, although she is not of this mortal place. She is of some higher divine realms, but she remembers her divine origins. That's the, I think, the basic difference between mostly us ignorant beings, that we don't remember. And that's the power of these sessions, or whatever books we may read, so that we can remind ourselves that I am divine and I have to reclaim that divinity that I have maybe become unaware of. So that the lower to transfigure itself, the lower takes its nature, the nature of the light that we are, and put on the nature of the higher. So abhi kya hai, right now the higher is masked in the nature of lower, and it's allowing itself to be masked. So if we see normal human beings walking, or if we look at ourselves in the mirror, we will say, where is the divine? I don't see it. So the divine, the higher, has become masked in the movements of Prakriti. Why? Because it was the plan. So we don't have to get again frustrated about it. That's the plan. Purusha said, I am taking a lower, like a background pose. You dominate. So the Prakriti came in front, because so that we can have this adventure of finding the divine within. So now the higher to reveal itself in the forms of lower. Now this evolution has to happen, and that's the whole journey. So I think this is very consoling in nature, that not at any moment of time we have to feel that, oh my god, I'm not worthy enough. We are all unworthy, and yet we are all worthy also, parallelly. So not to beat ourselves up, because that's the game, to find the worthiness amongst the muck of seemingly unworthiness. Yeah.
Hi, Monica.
Yes, Cloud.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, this resonated a lot with me, but actually, to take it in the practice with friends or family is really like almost impossible, because I mean, you say I am divine, and also others have the divine inside them, and we should look into the divine, yes, but certainly we are in this human body, like we always speaking, and we make mistakes, and we go into our ego, we go to this lower part of us that is also, we have to acceptance, yes, we have to embrace, because it's part of our divinity. Also the lower is not that, the lower is not divine, yes, because like the mother say, every atom in us, everything in this earth is divine, is have a purpose, yes. So in that way, you are telling that for this reason we are divine, even our imperfections are divine, and we can overcome every day. We can make them become, transform them, yes. It's not like we have to be all the same. It's like we have to find our purpose. It's something like this. I mean, I'm really confused with this divine thing, because I don't want to be like, to end in this part that everybody have to be the same, everybody have to behave the same, everybody have to be like, you know. So it's, this is for me very dangerous in a way,
Okay, so you, I'm just rephrasing so as I understand what you want to say. You're saying that if each one of us is divine, everywhere that they're just divine, then it means, it implies that everyone is just the same. That's what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
If everybody have the divinity inside of them, yes, we can make mistakes, and the mistakes are also divine. Yes, I mean it's questions. I mean I are like not affirmations, or this is the reality. And also that when we become this walking to the divine, to the perfection, doesn't have to be that everybody have to be like the mother, yes, that she arrives to her perfection. It's like I going to find my own perfection. It's like I don't, because I don't know if I explain myself well, but do you know when you go to certain schools, you have to dress a uniform, yes, and when you march in a school, you have to march everybody the same, yes. So then you are perfect, yes. If you don't do that in the same way, you are not perfect. So this is my question. It's like we all have to behave the same way and dress the same uniform, the same mask to be like the divine perfection. No, yes. I mean, it's like
So by perfection, it just means that whenever we see, Mother says, Mother has said in many, many ways, she has explained this. She says that for those of us who don't understand the word divine, they don't get it, they can use the word perfection. Now, if we explore the word perfection, and correct me, I'm just exploring with all of you. If we explore the word perfection, for those of us who are in art, music, various forms of skills, or even life, living is a skill, we see that in any art, in any form, we can continue the improvisations like limitlessly. So perfection is never, at least for now in our journey, we see that perfection is not a point that I just once reach and I say, wow, now I am perfect. Because then if I explore this with a friend, I would ask the friend, okay, tell me, in this piece of art that I have created, what do you think, what do you see can be improvised? And if the friend has a sense of beauty or something, he or she may suggest something else which I may not have seen. So we will see that people who are into these arts, musics, musicians, everything, I think Yuan would maybe share more. We see that there is no end to perfection. So whenever I see any kind of where I can, oh, this could be better. Mother says that be very observant of your own life and also observant of your actions. And whenever you see even a drop of some weakness, some ugliness, like pick it out like a forceps, she says, pick it out and see that how can you transform it into something of beauty and harmony. And we will see that we can go on and on and on, and as if there is no end to this perfection. So in that way, then none of us can be same, because each of us would have different unfoldings in life. So the only sameness is that the light of consciousness looks at the ugliness or weakness within. That's the only sameness I can see, because this is the light given to each one of us as human beings. I look at that ugliness or whatever I feel is making me uneasy. Something has to be replaced here. So I look at it and then I transform it according to whatever I can do. Either intuitively, some knowledge dawns, or logically, rationally, I work upon it. So that unfolding will be different for everyone. And in that sense, none of us are alike. But the oneness which one can see here is this light of consciousness which we are given, which with which I become aware of the thought. Okay, this is what I am thinking. With which I become aware of a feeling. Oh, this is how I react when the person says this. So this light of consciousness is one. That's why we say that the divine consciousness is one. It's like spreading throughout like space and takes different forms of us human beings and other forms, animals, plants, but the consciousness is the same, which has the knowing, which knows the thought, which knows a feeling. And that is the one which will be knowing the weakness, that, oh, here, this one is an imperfection in me, this I have to correct. So here we are all alike, but the unfolding will be, I think each one has its own unfolding. We can never be alike. That's the beauty. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone, if you have anything to share here, please.
Yes, I think that historically the religions and some spiritual paths have made an emphasis like in following certain rules and practice and like a uniformity and like the harmony, the final harmony of the world or salvation would be like everyone converting to the same dogma, belief, and way of being and precepts. And Mother says that you can never make a religion out of the Sri Aurobindo's teaching, like because he's so vast and he clearly understands this that every human being has a psychic being, a different soul, which will manifest a different way, a different form, a different aspect of the divine. So there is no rule for everyone. Each one has to develop from inside and not following some rules. Like from the inside, everyone will develop his own divinity in a different way, I guess.
Yeah, I think when Monica said that when somebody's fallen down or if somebody's going through something, remind them and remind yourself that, you are divine. I think maybe that's what, Claudia, I thought you were referring to as well. So, here, I think what I understood was, say we are riding horses, right? And we fall down. So when we fall down, we have a tendency to just say that, oh, I'm the fallen one. But what I think she was saying was that we have to remind ourselves that no, I am the one who rides, who has fallen down for now. But I have to remember I am the rider, I am the fighter, I am the seeker. Because the ego, the tendencies, they pull us down. And lot of times while living our lives, we forget what we are, who we are, what is my capability. Even in the, what we were reading, that term, that perfected human, liberated and perfected human being. So what is my perfection? As a human, somehow I'm made to believe that if I have a good family, if I am doing well, if I'm driving a good car, by this age, this is my target. By this age, this is my target. So what is my definition of perfection for me? Because a lot of times we just get pulled into the worldly things and define perfection through that. So not that, like that is a thing, do it. But where are you operating from? What are you going towards? So I guess that's what at least I understood that she was referring to. That remember who you are, remember who you are.
Yes, thank you. As the three of you are like, yes, very good. Yes, like is yes. I mean, because sometimes I always comparing myself, yes, and with the other one that is doing better, or with that, or his book is awesome, or that one plays amazing the music, or like the comparison, and then the comparison makes you fall down very easy, and yes, so it's always to look inside yourself and not going out all the time. And I mean, maybe sometimes, like you say, Monica, it's good to ask for advice to someone else. How is your music going? But also you have to develop your own master, your own I don't know how to say it, the one that say to yourself, this is good, darling. This is good. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I think it really helps. Again, several tools, infinite number of possibilities. Divine is infinite, so infinite number of ways, to approach also. And as Yuan was saying, that to everyone's natural inclinations, whatever processes, methods, tools suit, make use of them. Go ahead, make use of them. Go ahead, and again, not to stick even to the tool. I think that's most important, because we get stuck at many levels. So every tool is just a tool because it's making me realize more and more the oneness with the divine. Otherwise, it's like taking a ladder, going to the terrace. Now, once you have reached the terrace, although the terrace is too far, the journey is long, then again also you're pulling the ladder on the terrace. So no point. That's why we feel burdened by our practices at times. We become too dogmatic, too rigid, opinionated, even on the, especially on the spiritual path also. So yeah, I think that one of the tools which we lately came across was, maybe some of you have heard about it. It's about Naam Jap, and I want to share it here because it's very fresh. We just were going through it, and this disciple, mother's disciple, Ramakrishna Das, also called as Udiya Baba. Amazing thing is that the process is so simple, and just like things, as you Taru was sharing, that we will fall down again and again, we fall down, but the focus should not be that I am the fallen one. The focus, our focus sways away. So to keep the focus towards the higher, what he recommends is chanting, like doing a japa continuously, even mechanically, of mother's name, for example, or divine name, anything that resonates with us. So what happens through that repetition is that the repetitive loop of thoughts, which is taking me again into that sinking into the lower consciousness, I'm actually giving now this name of the mother more priority than this other line of repetition. So it's like two parallel tracks. Now this again takes me down, 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 down. I know I have, trodden upon it several number of times. And this one I am exploring, and this keeps me the higher in the focus. So it may be repetitive, it may be mechanical, but I have been here many times. And now the moment the repetitive old patterns arise, what we do is we don't give away ourselves to those repetitive loops of patterns, which degrade us, which disrespects us, and which makes us lower and lower. So the moment I see the lower arising, that's the light of consciousness which we all have, that I can see the lower arising. The moment I see that, I not only the moment I see, I continuously keep a track on mother's name, mama, 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 or whatever suits us. It could be any other name also, since divine is only one. Doesn't matter what name resonates with me. So the simplicity with which Sri Ramakrishna Das shares, and he shares that mother talked about physical transformation, and since we were reading integral healing, and physical transformation will be a part of it, why not to touch upon this simplicity and this practice? Why to delay it further, when we will later talk about it? So I thought I'll just introduce, for those of us who are maybe not heard about it, uh, just shortly introducing this. The book I had already shared with you on the group. So there is this reflection of Remembering Babaji by Dakshina. And there are few points here which he shares, which are very touching. His just presence and simplicity was so profound. that I'll just maybe go through and read a few lines to touch upon it. So just round the corner from the ashram, in a small room at number 13, the walls covered every inch by years and years of calendars of mothers and Sri Aurobindo, and there, seated behind a small table alongside his bed, was Babaji. That room was vibrant with peace and sweetness, and Babaji's constant invocation of the mother's presence. So it is said that people who have met him, that he was constantly with mother's name, and he exuded, something out of himself because of that presence, constant invocation. So here she shares that although he was speaking in either Odia or Hindi, which she could not understand, mostly he would speak in Odia, sometimes in Hindi, and most rarely a few words in English. What is the mother's name? I think he was chanting Ma, 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 Ma. So I think whatever suits or resonates with you, either mother or to him Ma, that's what he's sharing, that he chanted Ma, 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 Ma constantly. So she was well versed with English. She was not speaking English, she was speaking Hindi or Uriya. But understanding with the mind seemed not at all what I was there for. Instead, I would absorb the vibrations and feel grateful to be present in this place where my psychic being felt at home, in the company of a disciple of Mother and Sri Aurobindo who emanated their presence and spiritual radiance of a great realized soul. And now the beauty again, this one. At the same time, Babaji did not let me turn to him as a spiritual teacher, but made it firmly clear that my devotion should be offered directly to Sri Aurobindo and Mother as my Guru, not allowing any attachments in me for him. So I think this is again beautiful, because many a times we see, even at the level of having a master or guru, we get stuck at that level, and we, instead of going towards the divine, we get stuck at this person. This happens with many of us, many times. Yeah, so this one again, towards the end, that it was one reason that he put so much emphasis on Naam Japa. I think he's in detail elaborated in that PDF that I had put on the group. And the repetition of mother's name, as she herself had said, for the transformation of physical, the repetition of the mantra was essential. We see it in mother's agenda, that mother says that had Sri Aurobindo been there when we started with work, because he left body in I think 1950, so mother started physical transformation more extensively later, and she said that had he been there when I was already doing the work, he would also have realized the importance of mantra, and why he did not give a mantra at that time, because at that time we were not working on this. So now I'm working on this, and I realize that without a mantra, it's almost close to impossible to transform the physical. Yeah, so yeah, just wanted to touch upon this, and those of us who are interested, they can go through the book. And what I found really remarkable was that the process is so simple that you don't have to read any scripture, no need to go to any workshops, just chant the name. And he says that even if you chant it mechanically, now he says that aren't we always chanting mechanical thoughts in the head? And don't we see that they have an effect on our body and mind? So why would not a mechanical repetition of mother's name have an effect? How beautiful and simple. But again, we have to experiment for those of us who want to get convinced. And it's good to experiment, because only then we realize the power of whatever we are trying.
So the sense I make of a piece of what you're saying there, Monica, is that we, as in the sense that we are human, we are subject to the mechanical mind within us. And that mechanical mind has a will of its own, apparently, that's somewhat or completely independent of our conscious will. And it just keeps cycling and repeating. It has a tendency, I'm sure not only in me, to emphasize negative things, at least from time to time. So if we can acknowledge that we have a mechanical mind, then rather than leaving it to run on its own trajectory, if we substitute even a repetition, a mechanical repetition, it's an improvement over being subject to the mechanical mind of nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very well said, yes. Thank you for reiterating. Yes.
One thing, Rick, you said we have a tendency towards negative most part, but I think even if it's not negative, a lot is unnecessary. You know, if I look at what my thoughts, that if this person would say this, I'll say this. Oh, she has said that, I should have said that. You know, those things really have no value. It's just, you know, like a monkey, right? A monkey needs something to do. Either he's doing negative things or unnecessary things, or maybe a few good things. So, but that's happening mechanically. So a japa is like, okay, you give a monkey something concrete that, okay, because being a monkey, you must move, you must cling, you must jump. Okay, jump on this. You know, so just erasing all the things that occupy us so much, that such a precious life is kind of being occupied in the mundane, the petty, that has no value or significance to anything of me. I mean, you know, it's just amazing how one can give this, okay, hold this, play with this. And in terms of this japa, you know, I was just getting this thing that how they, in India especially, there's idol worshipping, right? And they say that it's not the stone, it's what you have put into the stone, right? Like you make a stone into gods. And only yesterday I was, you know, reading about the Tirupati Mandir, like it's in South India. And there was an article which said that on a daily basis, 22.5 million is donated to that temple. So, in the sense, like, I come from stone, right? In the inconscient in me comes from, make it into the divine, because I say I am nothing but divine. So if a idol can actually be God, because it is God for the one who believes, so by saying this japa, I am trying to my effort to convert my inconscient into that. With that energy, it radiates with God. So how, there is some logic in that too. I mean, if I'm looking at it logically, I'm just putting that energy into me by just constantly chanting. And it all goes very well with the last para that we were reading, that how it has to be transformed. And yeah, thank you.
And we also talk about surrender, that I'm not able to fully surrender. So I think again japa can be a beautiful way, that moment to moment consciously I am surrendering to the mother rather than surrendering to the repetitive and unnecessary patterns, because we are surrendering at every moment, but to whom? So if I become conscious that I am surrendering time and again to my ego patterns, and enough of that if I want a different life now, so now surrendering to the mother, and with mother's name, there is so much power in that name. The thing has been made so simple for us, like a golden key being given to us. If we I was thinking that if we now not make use of it, I think then what can be said? How simpler can mother make this for us? That just take my name. And even then I can't do it. Then definitely I have my other interests and preoccupations which I feel are more important than remembering mother's name. So I must not lie to myself then. Yeah. And then mother takes over. The more we give uh, the throne to the mother in our life, I think mother takes over. And as in their yoga they say that we don't do the yoga, mother does the yoga for us. So yes, there is conscious effort of chanting mother's name. That is needed from us, but the yoga will be done by the mother. So how simple can it be?
When we use terms like surrender, right? Somehow they seem bigger than us, bigger than life, right? Oh, surrender, that's something very complicated, something that only, the highest people can achieve. We have these perceptions because we have made them very complicated. But like what you were sharing, and in that article, we all can understand invocation, right? We all can understand, okay, take this name. So even if we don't get lost in the terminologies, just simply like he was saying, that he just kept on just calling the mother. That how then, don't know whether it's offering or it's surrender or whatever, but she's with you. She's with you. You're just invoking her, and that's it. So no terminologies, no names, and just call her like you call, when you need your mom or whatever. It's so, I don't know how it can be simpler, like you were saying. I absolutely agree. Yeah.
Also, someone sent me the image of the mother, and sometimes also just looking her gaze helped me a lot. It's just look at the hair, like it's like wow, it's just take me out of my state. Well, in this case, I just speak of the image of the mother, but can be others images. In the case of Mexico, La Virgen of Guadalupe, she have also this beautiful. I mean, it's just like amazing. So it's many other images that are very, yeah, like they have a lot of higher connection. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think let us slowly, pray for all of us also, that we are calling, as you were sharing, whatever name we may say, we are calling something or the other at any moment. Either I'm calling my patterns, or what do I want to call? We are, as you were talking about, referring to a monkey. So we are active in some way or the other, and it's like 0 and 1. Now, either I am with my monkey mind, or I can be sticking, gluing. Gluing has to happen, but this has to we have to become conscious. Where am I glued? And as mother says, that never stick to anything else but the divine. I think we have to now experiment with ourselves only, that what benefits me, what do I stick to, and what is benefiting me, and choose that path for each one of us. Yeah, so I would say maybe, why not take 2 minutes of silence, if we all feel like 2 minutes of silence, and just clinging to whatever benefits, and also praying for each one of us, not only the ones in session, but may everyone uh, find solace, peace, and progress in their life through whatever way, and sharing the merit of this session also with everyone around. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.